A story of the early church describes the Holy Family scene in Nazareth. Joseph is teaching his foster son, Jesus, some carpentry, and in a childish mishap with some hammer and nails, Jesus cuts his finger. Joseph rushes up to him and cries out, "Oh, my son, you have wounded yourself with a nail." And the scene goes on to describe how Joseph and Mary tenderly bind up the wound of Jesus. Growing up in a family prepared Jesus in a very human way for giving himself fully on the cross. This is one of the reasons why our Holy Father Pope Francis has inaugurated a new Jubilee Year titled Pilgrims of Hope. This year began on Christmas Eve when the Pope opened the Holy Door at St. Peter's in Rome. In our Archdiocese of Cardiff-Menevia, the Jubilee Year begins this weekend. I will be celebrating Mass in the Cathedral of St. David, and another Mass will be celebrated at St. Joseph's Cathedral to inaugurate the Jubilee Year Pilgrims of Hope for our Archdiocese. All Catholic bishops across the world will do the same in their own cathedrals. The Holy Father reminds us, hope is born of love, and based on love springing from the heart of Jesus on the cross. Today's feast reminds us that Jesus' preparation for offering himself on the cross first began in the home at Nazareth. There the Son of God knew the joy and sorrow of growing up in a human family. So often, we idealize the Holy Family. We can assume that the experiences of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph in their family have little to say to our modern experience of family life. Yet we need only recall the events of the Lord's early years to realize that he didn't have a fairy tale experience in his childhood. It began with a controversial pregnancy which caused a degree of local scandal and was followed by a birth in a borrowed stable. As an infant, Jesus was hunted for his life, so much so that his parents were forced to migrate to Egypt and to live there probably for several years. We also know that whilst he was a boy, his parents didn't always understand the full meaning of his call and his life. These are the details that we know from the Gospels. Tradition also teaches us that Joseph died before Jesus' public ministry. So Mary and Jesus knew a deep family bereavement too. We know from other scenes in the Gospel that Jesus showed great sensitivity to widows and that he wept over the death of his good friend Lazarus. We can imagine that he first encountered these realities in the home of Nazareth as he comforted Mary, newly widowed, and himself knew the heartache of losing his human father. Knowing this of Jesus gives us hope. This time of year, we rightly give more time to be with our families. This is such a great gift. We learn again the tenderness of being together, being with those whom we love. But as well as being full of joy and a consolation to each one of us, it can also be a time when we experience some of the tensions of family life. we see some of its vulnerabilities and frailties. It is easy to think that God does not understand this or is far from our human reality. The Feast of the Holy Family tells us something quite different. We believe in a God who is with us. In Jesus, our God has entered fully into a human family. He walks with us. He came among us and knows our joys and our sorrows from the inside. Jesus was the first pilgrim of hope, sent by our Heavenly Father to bring us all to be with God the Father forever in heaven. There is no genuinely human experience which God does not know or cannot transform, and this gives us hope always, no matter our circumstances. There are various resources for the Jubilee Year available on the diocesan website. I hope that together with some of your family, you will make a visit to one of the pilgrimages sites that have been designated throughout the Archdiocese. Pray there for your own family and for our diocesan family too. It is in the family that we first learn to love, to forgive, to say sorry, to begin to give of ourselves in service of others. In a family, we learn what it is to have hope. We know the rhythm of hurt, of sorrow, of regret, and of healing. This is how we become pilgrims of hope. Our reflection on family life must not, of course, forget those who are lonely this Christmas, or those who feel isolated or alienated, either because of bereavement or other circumstances. This is important, especially during this year of Jubilee for hope, because we must remember that hope is offered to everyone. Good marriages and strong families are never closed in on themselves, but are always open to those who are most in need. This is why we all find our home in the family of the Church, whatever our situation. The gift of hope in this Jubilee year is for all. We walk the road of life and of faith together, and no one need feel abandoned or left out. I ask God's blessing on you and those whom you love, especially your family members, this feast day. As we embark on this Jubilee year together, may we be more faithful pilgrims of hope for one another and for our world, which is so desperately in need of the gift of hope. God bless you. Pray for me.